Perfect. Well, welcome to the first hangout that we've had with the Society for One Place Studies for a little while. I'm Kirsty Gray, as most of you will know. I'm secretary for the Society, and this is very much one of my do as I say and not as I do hangouts, which I'm hoping is going to be more of a discussion than me presenting too much. We've sort of advertised it as a how do you organise your study. So I'm hoping that those people who are watching, who are either in the room or outside or whatever, might have some bits and pieces that they can tell me how I should be doing it, because I'm probably not doing it right. So I'm going to share a couple of slides to kind of introduce it a little bit, and then if you've got any ideas as we go through, please feel free to chip in. I'm more than happy for you to chip in as we go, and then we'll have a sort of discussion session for a big chunk of the hangout today. So hoping you can see my screen, and now not me.
That's
so
fine.
I often do hangouts on things that I know I should be doing better. Not because I want to sit here and tell you that I'm doing it perfectly, because when I first started doing a place study or a community study, or call it what you will, I had no idea I was doing it. So this is all about how you, not me, how you organise your study. So when I started out, I certainly wasn't planning on doing a place study. I didn't wake up 10 years ago and go, I really want to do a place study and I want to find out everything about this random place. I didn't even knowingly know it was a thing. So I kind of stumbled across my places, because I do two, which I'll tell you a little bit more about, or you may already know if you've heard me speak on a hangout or briefly in one of our conferences before. But I stumbled across my places actually to do with my Silliphant surname study. And nobody in my Silliphant surname study that's connected with me comes from either of my places that I study. So I know that sounds a bit weird, but I don't have any ancestors that ever lived in either of the places that I study, but they just fascinate me. And I first stumbled across these places. I was told to go, actually. I was told to go to a little village called Luffincott in Devon, which is one of my two places, because I was told that on the wall of the tower of the church, there was a plaque that said the name Silliphant, which is my surname study. And I thought, great, okay, get the map book out. This is before sat navs even existed. So let's go out and find this church. Well, quite frankly, blink and you miss the sign that says church. And it's a tiny, tiny lane. And you get to the end of that lane and there's a barton and a church. And then you have to turn around and come back again. It's not a through road. So unless you were actually looking for the church, you probably wouldn't even bother to go down that road. So when I started out, I found that place. I found this church, which is amazing. Very, very small. Not a church that's even used for any kind of meetings, prayers, nothing. It hasn't been used for many years. It's a redundant church. I think it used to be called St Andrew's in the Wardrobe. Used to be where all the redundant churches were kind of looked after, St Andrew's in the Wardrobe. And so it's not used at all anymore. And it's not derelict. It's still in a decent condition, but it does have pigeons inside. So it's quite interesting when you go visit. So I just started looking at all the people and places that were there. So, like I say, I didn't exactly knowingly think I'm going to do this study. I just wanted to find out more about the people that had passed through. I'm more of a people person and a buildings person than anything else. I wanted to know who this darned Richard Silliphant was, who had been part of this team that had rebuilt the tower in 1791. You don't find many plaques in rural Devon, in the middle of nowhere, that exist still, that haven't been worn down by rain or wind or whatever over the years, that haven't been eroded away, that you can actually still read. 1791. So I wanted to know who this guy was, and I didn't know at the time. I started collecting loads of stuff about Luffincott. So as I've said on my slide there, I started ransacking Devon Heritage Centre. When I say ransacking, I don't mean went in and like stole all the records or anything. But I basically wanted everything. Like we all do. You want everything about your place. anything there is. So I went through the catalogues and I wanted to have anything I could get that I could have at home, because for those who know me, you know I don't live in Devon. I live in Wiltshire now, but when I started this, I lived in Reading, which was a decent trek. I mean, it's not like Alex, our treasurer, who lives in New Zealand and studies in Buckinghamshire, but still, it's a decent trek. And I wanted to have whatever I could get my hands on that I could have copies of at home. I also went to the National Archives and tried to catalogue as much as I could from there, and any other online sources, of which there are very few because my places are pretty minute. I wanted to locate as many books as I possibly could. And as I've said there, oh, I wish. I mean, when I find a book that's got something about Tetcott or Luffingcott, it's like, hallelujah, you can hear me doing a happy dance from probably New Zealand. And I also wanted to go to the place itself, as I had initially, and take loads and loads of photographs. So the first thing I did actually was try to get as many microfiche as I could, because a lot of, certainly for Devon, not necessarily for all places in the world or even all places in the United Kingdom, a lot of places you can actually purchase the microfiche, sometimes for a small fee, sometimes for a small mortgage. But for me, mine wasn't very much. I mean, I think my Luffingcott, which is actually the top right-hand picture, it's got my right-hand picture on the microfiche there, it's 3 fiche. I've also got Tetcott, Ashwater and Clawton, and I'm online parish clerks for some of those places. But they're minute. The records, I mean, I literally can have a whole page of baptisms and find that that's 3 years. You know, my places are really, really small, so I don't have a huge number. So the ones I could purchase, I did. And I've got, I would say 1 microfiche, but I'd be lying. I've got 4. Not because none of them work, because I use them for work as well, but I've got several microfiche. Over the years, I've had bigger ones, and thankfully now they're slightly smaller as they've been passed on. But I've got a microfiche reader, so my plan was always to have these microfiche and create a transcription. When I stopped doing family history and local history for a living, I might manage to do that. So probably 40 years time at least. So that's not quite there yet, but I've managed to obviously get everything that they have on microfiche, and I've again started to think about the transcriptions of other things, because not everything is on microfiche. Some of it is still original for me, particularly some of the records, and some things don't actually exist, because unfortunately that's my Tetcott baptism register. Now, you can probably gather from the state of the outside that it's not in the greatest of conditions. Thankfully, Devon Heritage Centre did allow me to actually take photographs of each of those pages, on the understanding that I would create this transcription one day. Thankfully, there was no time frame. Hurrah! And it is actually not really fit for production. So we very carefully opened the pages and took photographs of those, and I've given them the images. However, that's slightly better than this one, which is the Tetcott marriage register. That's taken from an article that Devon Heritage Centre actually wrote many, many years ago. They were having, they sort of had a time when they were trying to get as many registers in as they could, so they were in the register offices rather than sitting out in people's cupboards, or maybe a damp-proof container in the church if you're lucky, but clearly not in Tetcott's side of things. So this is completely unfit for production, it says in the catalogue, and you can see why. So any marriages that took place in Tetcott, I'm never going to be able to get an image of that register unless I get it from the General Register Office. I'm lucky that I do have the banns book, so at least I have that. But of course, we all know that banns might be read in the church, but the marriage might not actually take place in that church, and vice versa. You know, you might have the banns read, but the actual ceremony might not have occurred there. So I have a few challenges. Now, just to give you a little bit more information of why I do Luffingcott and Tetcott, I started off with this church, as I say, and I'll show you the plaque on the side of the church a little bit later. But The reason I decided to do both, I don't think it was a decision, it was kind of made for me, was actually that Luffincott and Teckott changed their boundaries. So in some censuses, you'll find that certain properties are in Luffincott, but then the following census, 10 years later, you'll find that actually they're not included in that parish anymore, and they've moved to the one next door. Wonderful. So I kind of got thrown into it, but neither of my places are particularly enormous, and they've got some really interesting history, so I kind of don't mind. One of the things I did very, very early on was, as I say, ransack the Devon Heritage Centre and basically looked at everything they had in the catalogue, which was harder back then than it is now. I don't know how many of you are doing UK studies, so I apologise, this is a bit UK centric because it's relevant to my study. But the Discovery Catalogue now is so much better than when I first started doing this kind of research, when it was access to archives or A to A. And you had to go in and you had to put the specific archives that you wanted to search. Not all of the archives, well, still not now, it's not every single archive that's included in the catalogue. But now it's all integral with the Discovery Catalogue at the National Archives at Kew. And if you go to an advanced search, you can actually decide which particular archive you want to search. And most of my records, not all, but most of them are held in a Devon archive of some sort. But you can see even there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different archives / libraries where I might want to search for documentation relating to either people who've lived in Teckott or Luffincott or the places themselves. You might want to just go in and go, I don't care where these records are kept, I just want everything. But it's staggering when you put in a very small place. I think the last time I did it, Luffincott had something like 400 and odd records. And it's never had more than around 100 people living in it. And how do you get 400 and something odd records in all of the archives around the country for a place that's had so few people living in it over time? It's quite staggering. But some of those places where those records are held are really bizarre to me. You know, I sort of think, well, Cornwall, I get it. Cornwall, I totally get it, because Luffincott and Teckott are right on the border of Devon and Cornwall. So maybe some of them, you know, the family were originally from a Cornish parish and the family records are held down there. I mean, Teckott Manor, most of the records for that particular family who owned that for a long, long time are in Cornwall because they're a Cornish family. Some of them are in, well, I can't think of one for an example, but somewhere crazy like Lincolnshire. And you think, well, what are they doing up there? And I haven't, funnily enough, gone to those weird and wonderful record offices to find those weird and wonderful records, because most of the ones that I really, really need are in Devon or Cornwall, and I've done both of those. The other place that I find quite useful online in terms of mining the online side of things is Geograph. I don't know how many people who are members of the society use Geograph, but it's UK and Ireland based, but it's images trying to create an image for every square kilometre, I think it is, rather than square mile, but every square kilometre of UK and Ireland. And strangely enough, someone's decided to put the memorial tablet for Teckott Church, which is quite a good one, up on Geograph. There are not too many pictures, but there are the odd few. And that gives me a picture, particularly, like I said, for somebody like Alex. I know she's visited Wing, her place study, but for someone who lives a little bit further afield, or if it's got nothing to do with your place study and you're thinking, oh, well, actually, I've got someone that kind of passed through this parish. It's got some amazing pictures. Be careful of copyright. Some are free to use and do what you like with, but some aren't. So just a little bit of a cautionary one there. But this is, a wonderful free resource for you to use for your own personal use and find some pictures of those places. They are current day pictures. They're not historic ones. Goodness gracious. If I get historic pictures of Luffincott and Teckott up on eBay, that's another story. So a question which I want you to kind of ponder on when talking about a few other bits and pieces. Cataloguing photographs of documents. I have ransacked everything at the National Archives, anything that's got Teckott or Luffincott. And I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh, it's beautifully catalogued. No, it's not. Thankfully, I had the good sense to take the little yellow ticket that's got the actual reference on it. But I haven't catalogued those pictures at all. They're literally in a file. Not even a file, it's a folder actually, but they're in a folder with a whole load of files. So I've got the pictures. What have I done with them? Absolutely nothing. As I say, I have noted down the references, thankfully, for anything that I've done. But the one thing I regret sometimes when I look back on the research I've done, so I've been doing this since I was, well, not so much the photographing of documents and such like, but I've been researching since I was quite young with my mum. I've been doing it myself since I was 18. And I know that's only 5 years ago, but you know, I wish. But it's a long time ago. And I didn't have any training back then. Like most people who start doing this, you just do it. And I wish that I'd written down the records I'd searched or the data sets that I'd searched, whether it be online in more recent times or whether it be in an archive, you know, more historically. I haven't recorded negatives as well as positives. I haven't gone, right, I've searched through this record and there is nothing relevant. And I've probably searched through those negatives more times than I care to think about. And sometimes I'll go through and I'll go, I've looked at this before, but I haven't noted that. So I'd be very interested to hear how people catalogue their photographs, particularly if it's pages and pages of a book, whether that be a baptismal register or a book, as we would say, it's sort of a more modern book. Because that's something I'm really not that great at. Now, this is a picture literally of my shelf, not quite the one that's right next to me when I switch my camera back on and switch the screen share off, but that's literally a picture of my shelf. Now, I won't say a hoarder of books, but I find books fascinating. And you'll see there's one book that says Teckott. One. Do you know what it's got to do with Teckott, the place? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I will show it to you in a moment. But it's the story of the Hunt-class destroyer, HMS Teckott. Brilliant. But it's called Teckott, so I have to have it. Got a lot of books of small places. I mean, the book about Petropstow, past and present. If anybody knows Devon, Petropstow is much the same kind of size as Teckott, in fact, a little bit bigger. But of course, if your place is small, you don't find many books written about it. Because quite frankly, nobody cares apart from you. And I found actually Richard Briers, as in the Richard Briers, the actor. He wrote a book about lots of different English parish churches. I forget what it's called. He wrote a book about English parish churches, and blow me down, did Teckott get actually included in it? And I found it in a bookstore probably about 8 or 10 years ago. And again, happy dance, amazing, because I just don't find things like that. And when I Google, if I try and find information about either of my places, well, someone's copyright originally wasn't held particularly well because it's always the same. It's like people just copy it from the original, wherever the original actually started. And it's the same stuff over and over and over and over again. So you don't get a huge amount. And I'm sure a lot of you who are listening will probably be going, yeah, I know it well. So it's a question of that kind of deep dig to actually find anything new about your place. But the bit I love, and I'm sure many of you are very, very similar, is just go and visit the place. That's what made me fall in love with my two places. You can see from this picture, this is Teckott Church. You can see how built up and how many million houses there are in the area. Ha ha ha. There aren't. It's just that idyllic Devon village. It's tiny. It's got some newer council houses that have been built in the 20th century, but I think I'd be pushed to find anything built in the 21st. Most of the houses have got a lot of history. Some have been rebuilt over time and people have bought them as, you know, property. Not, I won't say redevelopment because I don't mean in terms of modernising, but, you know, they've bought run-down places to actually do up themselves and, you know, restore them back to their sort of original-ish condition. And I just love going back. And I've gone back year on year on year on year. And I've taken the same photograph probably year on year on year. In fact, I know I have because I've taken some of them. And the church is very, very, very old. And some of the gravestones are very, very, very old. And as you can probably see from just behind the church, if you look slightly off to the right, it's very, very open. And interestingly, I think the first time I visited would have been, gosh, if I said 15 years ago, I don't think I'd be exaggerating. And some of the gravestones that I took the photographs of 15 years ago, and I've taken them more recently, you can really see the weathering and the erosion over time. And I've tried to, again, question for you all, I've tried to take a lot of photographs of those gravestones, but how do you, maybe this is a Peter question, but how do you map those? How do you actually create a, this is this gravestone and this is where it is? Because again, that's something that I struggle with. This is the plaque I was talking about. This is the original raison d'etre, as they say in French, but this was the tower that I first found in Luffincott. Again, tiny, tiny church. I mean, it's got 24 graves in the whole churchyard. So I can map that, Peter. I'm fine with that because it's small. It's very, very easy to do. But when you get that little bit bigger, and I'm sure many of you, your studies are way, way, way bigger in terms of if you're looking at a graveyard than mine is. But how do you create that kind of picture or map, or call it what you will, of that particular area of your place? Now, I love this particular plaque, not just because it's got a elephant, which connects my name study to my place study, but I love the fact it also references the 3 people who actually had a role in that particular place at that particular time. Now, Richard Silliphant was the mason. I can't believe he rebuilt the tower by himself, but he's the one that gets a mention in 1791. And those 3 people were church wardens. Now, anyone who's doing a study in a small place in that kind of time frame will know that those church wardens will probably be the more affluent members of society. So it starts me off on my, where are these places? Where is Peak? Where is Warden? Starts me off on my little mapping trail. So I've started to catalogue the houses and residents, which is a challenge. I'm a kind of pen and paper or pencil and paper kind of girl. And when we're at the conference this year, because we're doing our shared endeavour this year on buildings, I'll share my lovely hand-drawn map of TechCop, because the first time I actually decided to go through TechCop and really start cataloguing the places rather than just focusing on the records and the archives and the nice, warm, dry environment of the archives, I decided to just wander along the road and take pictures. And I think I may have said in the hangout before, the best way of getting the nosy neighbours going, what blazes are you doing? And I had several people pop out and have a chat, and lots of them were very interested in what I was doing. Some of them because they wondered what the heck I was doing. But one particular couple invited me in for tea and biscuits, and we sat down and did a little map of all of the places, what they were called, you know, any kind of names of people that they knew lived there at that particular time. Priceless. That's time that I would pay, you know, hundreds of pounds for, and I just had tea and biscuits and drew it on my A4 paper. But I then wrote out to everybody to say, look, I'm really interested in the place, and can you share some information? I'm going to try and organise an event to gather people together, and I'd really like to hear from anybody who's interested, who's got some old photographs or memories or whatever. And you know, I heard from one person in the whole of my 2 places. I was really disappointed. This is going back a long, long time. But that person and I still correspond now. He was not a resident who'd lived in the in the village for a long time. He was one of the people that was doing up one of the properties. But he was really interested, and we still correspond, not regularly. But it would be lovely if more people were interested in my place, and I'm sure many of you probably think the same. So a couple of things in terms of thoughts for discussion. How do you catalogue gravestones was one of the ones I raised before. What software do you use to connect people records from one source to another. So does anybody have a really cunning way of connecting somebody who lives at a particular property in 1841, maybe a sale document or a photograph or something like that? I'd be really interested to hear. And how do you keep a track of which record sets you've searched? And I particularly mean now that there's so much more online, because when I first, when the 1911 census first came out, I've literally got all of those printed out, the 1911 census in A3 from the National Archives, because that was the only way I could have all of those. I can download them all now, so it was a bit of a waste of time and money, but hey, never mind. But how do you connect all those records together? Is there a way of doing that? And how can you track the record sets that you've searched? So if you've got a will, for example, then probably there are going to be no more wills that suddenly appear in that will's record set. But how do you know which record sets you've searched in? I find that quite challenging. And more than that, I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now. But more than that, I'll just go back to the other one now. Hang on 2 seconds, and I can actually see the rest of you in the room, which is always helpful. I found this earlier on. I was talking to Peter just before we started, and I found this, and you can probably just see. I bought this. I bought it back in 2014, and thanks Janet Few for making me spend a fortune. We tend to clock each other's studies and things, I think, after a while. But this is the plans, particulars and conditions of sale of agricultural estates. You may remember I said about Luffencott Church and it being at the end of the road with Luffencott Barton. And this is actually, I don't know if you can see it particularly, I don't want to bend it too much, but it's when they actually sold Luffencott Barton in 1913. And there is this wonderful lot map of, oh, there's she, here we go. But if I can hold this up, actually, it's quite big. Oh, here it is. Like that. There we are. So it's all the lots that actually created the Barton back in 1913, which is brilliant. So it kind of, I can compare that with my tithe maps and see. The funny thing is as well, on the outside of it, it gives you who owns the surrounding land. So I've got the Reverend, the Honourable Henry St Aubin, and the same at the top. And then I've got the Duchy of Cornwall, because it backs onto Cornwall in one little corner. The executors of the late Mr. J. Spettigue, and Spettigue was one of the names on the side of the church. Yeah, it gives you the little church, the bit that isn't part of it, which is actually the church, which is the little white section. Obviously, that wasn't part of the sales. That's brilliant. But how do I catalogue all this? So how do I organise myself? Now it's over to you lot to tell me what I should be doing. Come on, tell me.
I'll start it off by saying, obviously I do everything on the most things on the computer, and I'll tell you one or two of the things I've done on that for organising. But I do have a box and 3 piles of stuff, which is there for me to get to when I get to it. But
I'm glad, Peter. I'm delighted. I'm glad it's not just me.
that's a last in first out sort of pile that I will get to sometime, but I do have quite a few other files. Now, having said that, there's a lot to be done, but I do have a lot that is organised. One of the things I did in terms of documents was I have on the computer, and I don't know, you could do this otherwise, I suppose, other than computer. Basically, I went to the website for our local archives, and I did a search for everything to do with my place. And basically, I picked that up as a spreadsheet or as a list, and that's in my database. But I allocated a status to that. One of 4 statuses. One was not seen, and that's how they all started. So, I haven't seen them yet.
Right.
If I did have a look at it and decided I didn't want it, then that's a status I have of seen, not want, which means I don't have to look at it again. But it's still there because the database, obviously, it's there. It's There's no cost to having it there said I don't want it.
Do you do that in Excel, Peter?
Well, no, I don't. I use Access, but
Okay.
as a database thing.
Sure.
I mean, I did wonder whether what I've done might be interesting to people generally, but I play with things and I do stuff. It's very complex, but it suits me. Basically, if I find something and I purchase it or download it or whatever, then I just put down have. That's the status for I've got it.
Sure.
And then if there's something I see, because quite often I'll go to the archives and I'll see it and I haven't got it, but I know I want it. So that's seen and want.
I like it.
More statuses, you see. So because they for the archives, they charge me 10 quid a day for photographing. So when I go, I've got a list of about 200 documents or whatever that I'm going to, that I've got seen and want. Wow. So I will photograph, I'll have that list and I'll get them out and I'll keep photographing all day. That's just the way I do it. Mine's quite a big place, so
I was thinking that, Peter. Yeah. Did you start off with it organised in that way, or did you not have a system and then start partway through?
Well, basically, a bit of a bit. I developed my system for doing my database because that's the way I do things.
Yeah.
That's my background, and so I started off in a very simple way, but I had that, and I gradually added to it and amended it as I went, as I found I needed it. Actually, one of the things I did do was, while I've got a list of documents or whatever, and each of them has a number, that's all, a plain number, and author and date and notes and things. I did find that I needed to divide it down, because sometimes a document is actually a complete folder of a whole lot of other things.
Right.
And beyond that, I found even those sub-documents I sometimes need to subdivide because there's so much data. So somebody gave me a whole load of postcards that he'd collected of our village. Or copy.
I'm jealous.
Let me copy them. Oh, there's a lot. There's a lot there. Yes. And so I would have a look through, and I've given each of them the reference. So I've got on all my everything's got a number, and then the sub-document's got a letter and a whatever. So I can easily identify them, and that's what the actual document's called. Because the other side of this is what you call them on the computer and where you store them.
Yeah, because I think the problem is, like I was asking, did you start with that from the beginning? And like I said at the beginning of the presentation bit, I started this so long ago that it's kind of like I'm so in it without a system that I kind of think, how the heck do I start one?
Yeah, it is difficult, but my whole training has been basically that I need to reference everything. So I need everything's got to have a number or whatever. And then I store information in the computer about that. So I don't have to store things in folders about different places or people or whatever. I do all that on the computer. I link things on the computer.
Right.
So on the computer, I've got all the people I know about. I've got all the dwellings I know about. I've got all the events for, the dated events and stuff. And I relate those in the computer, and any documents or photographs that are related to that, I link it to. So a particular event, I might have 23 different documents that are linked to it. But they're not
mine.
Sorry?
Can you do mine?
I was just about to say I'm looking forward to retirement, Richard, myself, actually, but yes.
But I think the important point for me is that I store stuff fairly simply, so everything has a number and it's just stored in that order. Yeah. But the way of linking it to people and everything, I've got in links. It's called meta information. I've got the links, so I'm the basic information is just there, stored sequentially.
So in terms of my gravestones question then, Peter, would you literally, in your study, I don't know if you've done it or not, but would you literally kind of go grave 001, 002, 003, or?
I won't answer that directly. Well,
Okay.
well, I will answer directly. For the gravestones, my most of my graveyards are covered by billion graves or whatever. So I just link to that.
Lucky you.
Or find a grave or whatever, one of them. Even if it wasn't, I might be tempted to go and do it and put it in there, and then I don't need to keep them. All I need is a reference to that particular grave. And then, of course, when I do have those in my database, but just linked to billion graves, and I link the names I know to it.
Yeah, because I think that's my problem. Like, I've been down however many times. I mean, I've done all of Laffencott. That's done yonks ago. I mean, unfortunately, some of them form the main bit between the pews in the church, which just makes me squeal. But you know, all the ones in the graveyard itself, I've transcribed them years ago, and I've taken the photographs, and I've done a little map because it's easy. So for that, it's fine. It's more Teckott, particularly because it still continues to grow. The actual graveyard, you know, people are still living there and people are still being buried there. So it's kind of, how do I, and of course they're not in rows, are they? Because why would you have gravestones in rows so I can draw a pretty picture? It doesn't work like that. They're all kind of, you know, like all over the place.
The one thing I did think about with the gravestones is just using the parish records. You know, they have a reference. Certainly the modern graves, the parish council record who's recorded where. So I can link to that. But take
more the mappy side of things that I struggle with to kind of.
The mappy side maybe is something we should deal with elsewhere, or, you know, because I do have things for how to map that, and I am exploring how to do that. And of course, with I think Billion Graves, I mean, they have the coordinates for everything, and I'm exploring with actually a separate thing, is using the mapping stuff I've got with our local environmental group, trying to locate all the main trees in the village, so we know exactly where they are. Pictures.
How amazing!
And there's the
equipment. I want graves. I don't need trees. Just graves.
I know. Well, they asked me, so I thought it's the same thing. Anyway, but I think, I mean, I've been fairly pragmatic about it. For example, censuses. I've just got a folder on the computer for censuses that is divided into the different years and then into the different.
I do have areas.
But then, and then those therefore have got a census reference, and in my links in the computer, I link the people to those census references. And my database, I can just click on the person, I see all their censuses
and get all the
which is nice, you know. And similarly for parish registers, which I transcribed, you know, they're all linked as well, which is nice.
So just in terms of your place, Peter, it's obviously a very different size to mine. What kind of size would you be talking in a census from, you know, 1901 or 1911 or something? How many people do you kind of have in your place?
Well, several hundred, 800 or whatever. So it's quite big. But then you see, with the computer, I do a lot. I can do a lot of not quite automated, but nearly automated.
Yeah.
The parish registers took me about a year to transcribe and link.
Oh, gosh.
But going back to 16, whatever it is.
I wish mine went back that far.
Well, our local historical society were doing it, and I've got fed up waiting, so I photographed and did it myself. And then I thought I wouldn't have the right to send them, you know.
I'm just wondering when mine start, because I've got the old Fillmore up my left sleeve as usual.
Is all yours on Access, Peter?
Sorry?
Is all yours on Access?
I use Access for my main database, yes.
And not Excel at all?
Sorry?
And not Excel at all?
No. I mean, I do, when I take data in, quite often, if I scrape it off the web, I quite often will put it into Word and then manipulate it in their tables, which are very good. And then I might pop it into Excel and from there into Access. But basically, obviously I like playing with technology, so not everybody does. But,
I think some of us do, but we just don't have time.
Yeah, it all ends up in Access and it's all related. So
You can take information from Excel into Access, can you?
Yeah, that's easy to import.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, you just mentioned how far yours went back, and actually my tech got record started in 1596.
Well, there you are.
I didn't even know that.
We're discovering.
Well, microfiche in the room, but yeah, gosh, I didn't realise it went back that far. And nothing got 1654, so that's actually pretty good. What was I mention? Oh, I photographed all the school records as well, because I've got like there's like school boards and things back in the day. So they're really interesting, just in terms of the right hand column of where people go. I always find those really fascinating.
Yeah.
So and so's had to go back and work on their family farm, or needed at home or something like that. I find those quite fascinating. And sometimes with the linked data, I find it really interesting, because sometimes obviously you can't afford to buy all the birth certificates for everyone that was ever born in your parish. And sadly, the baptisms don't always say when they were born, but you can get the birth date off the school records, which is great. So it just kind of adds to the information. And I'm lucky that most of mine A, exist, B, are legible.
Yes. One of the things I did think about organising, one of the things I started. Oh, is that noises in the background?
I think that might be Richard. It's not me.
Okay. I quite a lot of group photographs I had, maybe going back 70, 80 years. And I had the photographs of the group, and basically what I did was I took a copy of that and put numbers on each person, and then a list of all the people underneath. Because when I went to see people, I would try to get them to identify people. So I had a document which they could fill in a sense of who was in that picture, and then I would add because every person, as you might imagine, in my way of doing things, every person's got a number, of course, so not that so I can easily relate who's what.
Yeah, I tried muting Richard. It's obviously you, Steve.
Is it?
Yeah, I just muted Richard because I thought it might be him, but it's Steve.
Sorry, I thought I was on mute, but obviously my mute isn't working.
Never mind. It's okay. What was the other thing? There was something that popped up in my head. Oh, pictures. Because the thing that you were saying you're really lucky in terms of yours, Peter, but I'm really not. I mean, I think I've got a massive picture that I've got of it. It's actually a picture of a statue that was presented to somebody years and years and years ago. I think it was like 1890 something, to somebody who was involved in the Tequot hunt. And unfortunately it was found, and somebody separated the actual frame, sold the frame separately, and then I bought the picture itself. So I've reframed it and whatever. I mean, it wasn't actually extortionately expensive, but there's a house that was burnt down many years ago in Loughlincourt. I think it was where the rector lives. I'm not sure if it was the rectory in terms of the name of the place, but I'm pretty sure it's where he lived. And there was a picture that came up on eBay, and I can't remember how much I did actually spend, but I remember it being more than I probably should have done. And it's in a box like under practically lock and key, because there are so few historic photographs of my places. So I've literally got the one it's literally on the wall in my living room. I've got two bookcases, and it's in the middle in my living room, which is my Tequot one. But the other one is just a little postcard, and yeah, far too much to spend on a postcard. But like I say, there's so few things that I can actually get. I mean, this is the book that I was talking about. I'll just show you the book.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So I have to have it because it's about Tequot in terms of a place. Well, it's not, but yeah, it's fascinating, and it's one of those many books that sit on my shelf and collect dust. But I'm not sure if I can quickly lay my hands on the one that I was talking about. Yes, here we go. English country, not county. That was the book I was talking about, Richard Fryers.
Oh, yes.
It's fascinating. He said he has a long and passionate interest in all English country churches, and this splendid book is his personal tribute to the power and noble beauty of our ecclesiastical heritage. And I mean, all random places to have in it. I mean, you wouldn't expect Tequot to be in it. And he just says, Tech Church is almost certainly the most obscure in this book. That's the beginning sentence.
That's a claim to fame.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's literally, you know, a page and a half. And yeah, it talks about the presence of Black John, John Arscott, which was the kind of egg-shaped memorial that I showed you. The Arscotts were the owners of the manor house for many years, and Black John was known to be Arscott's dwarf jester, and apparently the last jester in England. Well, I can't find any record of it, because it's living years ago now, but it's very, very interesting to just kind of have a little section in the book, and some of them are far less obscure, but they're all over the place. And you think, of all the people to write a book about churches and include mine. But yeah, it's nice to have the odd one or two. So,
does anyone else want to contribute about issues to do with sort of getting organised?
I was thinking about putting a timeline together so I could link information, and my simplistic way of looking at it was to use Excel. I'd be interested if anybody else has done the sort of whole timeline as opposed to simply baptisms or something like that. So put in all different information.
Yeah,
I've got a timeline of a person or a place within the place, or what
A
are you putting
timeline
on?
of the village, and every time you find a fact, you put it into position and see if you can then interpret the information.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I've got a timeline on my website which anything the software I use on the website for the family history sort of stuff has got timelines as part of it automatically, and I fed it so it shows you all any dated fact for each person. It shows you that and compares it to known dates of history, you know, and I've put in local known dates as well, which is quite nice. And it's, you know, it's a nice time. But I think looking at things from the time point of view is a useful one.
So software, Peter, is that TNG?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It actually uses a public domain, well, open timeline software. Yeah.
I've started looking at that because I think that I like the way that you can sort of bring the facts together.
Yeah.
And go
well, if you want to talk about TNG some other time, I'm very happy to tell you what I've done and what it can do. It's really useful if you want to have anything on the web.
Well, I've got lots of records transcribed and a name index that pulls them together. What I was struggling to do is to pull that together for the people. And I started doing something homegrown, which was laborious but marginally successful. But I think I really need something a bit more, a bit more sort of heavy duty, or at least I'm not having to write the code myself. So that's why I was looking at TNG. Yeah.
What I've done is as an aside, really, is I've written a GEDCOM interface between my database and TNG. So GEDCOM being the standard way of getting input into one of these systems, and obviously my database. So I had to create GEDCOM in order to get it into it, but it works okay, and it's so powerful, the TNG software.
Yeah, because I was looking at pushing the stuff into some other software that produces GEDCOM, was like, you know, Roots Magic, if I use my own family history.
Yeah, any of those can do it.
Yeah, that's it. Just get the information in there in the first place.
That's my problem.
Yeah, think about cemeteries. I mean, I've just started doing photographs of my place, and we've rather crudely divided the cemetery into sections. And so I'm just naming the photographs, you know, A1, 2, 3, or A1, 2, 3, 4, so on, and but not trying to map them within that, but trying to name them logically within the small areas. I'm not quite sure how successful it's going to be, but because it's very much a start at the moment. But that was, so I'm also passing the photographs on to the Sussex Family History Group, for their purposes. But I've got photographs or mostly postcards at my place. The ones I haven't been outbid on eBay by silly prices. But they're just in a folder of plastic, those plastic containers.
Yeah,
I've yet to do anything seriously with them in terms of
I've got the same.
What they are. Yeah.
Yeah, not just my own place, but other places that I'm interested in. And when I found the particulars of sale that I showed you earlier on, I've been rearranging a couple of bits and pieces from here, because I don't know, some of you might remember that this was a little bit different, and I had a bit of a shelving accident not so long back, when all of my shelves decided to just fall off the wall.
Oh dear.
So I literally got home from work one day and walked up the stairs and just went, yeah. Well, I thought it might be a cat actually, but I think I've ruled that out. But anyway, by the bypass. But so no, when I kind of had to just pick everything up off the floor and rearrange it and stuff, I kind of put it into different places and different piles and sorted things out. And I found some stuff I had on Dartmoor Prison, because my great granddad and his dad were prison warders at Dartmoor, so it's always been sort of a bit of a random other sort of eccentric interest. And I've got all sorts of postcards, because of course Dartmoor Prison, there are tons of them. There are tons and tons and tons. So I started going through them as well, so I had to sort of stop myself and get here on time. But yeah, it's just the whole cataloguing thing, because like you, Steve, I've just got a box of loads.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I think one of the things I live by really is that the first thing I've done when I get to these things is I give it a name and a number. Then at least I've got that on the computer. I mean, having said that, and having the piles and boxes of papers, I've remembered, of course, I also have a lot of folders on my computer, which are in a folder called Findings to be Dealt with. So
that's pretty much what that folder is I was talking about.
And I've got about 40 different folders in that. Each of those is a different month in the last few years.
So much better.
Yeah, I thought I'd tell you that.
Thank you.
So at some point when I retire, I shall go back through these and process them. But
yeah, that's exactly what mine looks like. And the thing is, now I'm sat here on a laptop I've had for probably about a year, and a lot of my research is still on my old laptop, and it's not backed up to the cloud. So I literally left work tonight, bearing in mind I was coming home to do this, with my laptop, winging everything up into the cloud, because I was like, at least it's there and it's backed up then.
Yeah.
That is an important
things that you don't. Yeah, you just don't get time to do it though. I mean, I have got them backed up, to be fair. I have got them backed up from here years ago. But that's not even connected to anything now, because it doesn't back up anymore, because it's not connected to my old PC. But it is on there, so at least I have got something. But yeah, I was like, I need it on OneDrive, and then I'm fine.
One of the things I do, it's fairly informal but very easy to do, is I have a list of things I want to look at. It's just a Word document, but then I cross them out in Word when I've done them, but I don't actually record whether they were successful or not. But at least it means I know, next time I go to the record office, what's still there, and it is, kind of sorted into places to go. But it's it also has handwritten amendments on it, so it really is not good. I think the sounds like it's the proof of the old was it the cobbler's children of the worst shod.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, as I said, one of my questions was, how do you keep a track of the new records? How do you know what you've done? Because it's again, I've pulled off the World War I records of people whose place is referenced as TechBot 3 years ago. Maybe there's new records. Maybe something was transcribed wrong and someone's corrected it. I need to really kind of keep a better track of the record sets that are useful to me, and the ones that give me no results, and when I check them. So
that's very difficult. I've not tackled that really, because I know, you do a search, even just a simple Google search, and it doesn't find something that's useful to know. Yeah, but I'm aware I've done something several years ago, and things will have been updated, and I need to go through. I haven't tackled that yet. Even I'm in the GRO, having the birth dates on.
Oh,
I've been through that, and that'll be useful. But
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I have hundreds of newspaper articles that I've transcribed.
Yeah.
But finding out which ones have now arrived, or in the meantime, because Find My Past are putting more records on there, and so the newspaper,
the British Newspaper Archive as well.
It's and sometimes the things are very similar, so you might find the same
same article. Literally, copyright didn't exist back then.
Well, quite yes. So and the annoying thing is, if you've got that one you transcribed, and the next one has slightly different, has more information in it. Like
3 words that weren't in that one.
But just thinking about this business of Peter's suggestion of the creating a list of the records in the record office and then showing whether he's got once, whatever. Well, I just wondered that actually putting off a list and comparing them should be solvable with technology.
Yes, I mean, I do, or I have, and I will redo it. And because I've got exactly, I copy and paste essentially exactly what I had. If it's different, my database stuff then that's a sort of easy side, really. It's the newspapers and the ancestry searches or whatever. They're going to be more difficult. So enough to keep me going. I keep telling people this is my 50-year project, and they so, there we are. Sorry,
it's when you come to try and put a story together.
Yeah,
you're trying to sort of access information and make some sort of holistic sense of it, that I sort of run into trouble. I'm doing some work on the history of the potworks in Armitage, and I look at what I've written, and then I realise that I've got lots and lots more information which actually changes the interpretation. Like, I mean, I found something yesterday from the Freemasons, which changed the date. I thought it was 1866. It turns out to be 1864. But I've put the information there. I haven't sort of catalogued it properly. I don't know how to either.
Well, that's another thing actually about dates and names and almost everything else. You can't really rely on anything, and sometimes you've got several different facts that conflict, and you really need to record what the origin of each of those different facts is, so you can work out which is most reliable.
Well, that's no different from sort of family history.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because you'll find somebody's birth being
that
4 different versions in 3 different places.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's where I was coming from, really. We're going to have to draw it to a close in a minute. Are there any last thoughts or any?
No, but I'd like to hear more. So if people would like to kind of put it onto the Facebook group or anything and carry on talking about it and giving ideas, that would be, for me personally, amazing. So if you've got a brilliant way of doing anything, like finding an extra day in the week every week, but no, but just in terms of how to do it. And I think, like I said earlier on, Peter, I was interested in terms of yours as to whether you started out that way, because same with my surname study, same with all my research. I just kind of found myself in the middle of it and kind of went, oh, expletive, I haven't got a system.
Yeah, I think my general thing would be that one does need a system, but it does need to suit you and the way you work. The way I do it probably wouldn't suit anybody else.
No, but I think just sharing lots of ideas. I mean, I know we were sort of talking before we went live today, but just kind of share the ideas, and then maybe it make me go, or somebody else go, oh yeah, that's amazing, that's exactly what I want, or ask the questions. So I might put a little question mark up in the Facebook group, I think, so if people can comment on it, that would be good.
Okay, any last thoughts before we?
Hmm.
Any other last thoughts? I mean,
No.
No.
no. Well, thank you, Kirsty, for sharing,
All right, no problem.
and everybody for contributing. I shall stop it now. Say goodbye to you. Oh,
Okay.
Bye bye.
bye.
Bye.